All right. Thank you for joining us on the second call for this week. We're just going to go right into it. So this first one is 47110-1. It was submitted by Dewey, I believe, and as part of the MAC and ISPSC harmonization. Or no, I'm sorry, submitted by Michael. Did I read that right? Sorry, I'm working off of one screen today, and I usually have like three. So I'm give me 1 second here.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is not out of the harmonization committee. There are 2 CRs that have been submitted with this topic. I submitted one on behalf of the harmonization committee, and this is an independent submission.
Yep. I meant to go over yours first, Dewey, so I'm going to pull yours first.
Yeah, would it be helpful to see them both at the same time? Like one right after the other before we vote?
Potentially. And we can do that. So this is the first one for Dewey. So this is a flow turned down to performance standard. Makes several edits. Currently, the MAC states that the flow rate can be reduced more than 25% when the aquatic venue is unoccupied. Or I'm sorry, shall not be reduced by more than 25%. So this would take out that limiter and give the just overall statement that the system flow rate shall only be reduced when the aquatic venue is unoccupied. So if there are people in the pool, they have to meet the minimum flow. 47110-512 minimum flow. The flow rate reduction shall not be reduced in excess of the required flow to prevent recirculation pump cavitation for what is required to operate the automated controller, which makes sense. We don't want to kill our pumps by reducing our flow rate or not be able to siphon chlorine. And then 47110-513 just changes the numbering for disinfection concentration from 1-2 with the minimum flow addition for that section, and then moves disinfection concentration to 1-3. Again, this is from the MAC ISPSC Harmonization Committee.
Where is it listed, or how will an operator know what the flow to prevent recirculation pump cavitation is? Is that listed on the pump or by the manufacturer? Do we need to have another little sentence that says per the manufacturer instructions?
No, I think for two reasons. One, you can't lower the flow while anybody's in the pool, so there's no issue there. Two, if you lower the flow to the point where the pump starts cavitating, you're going to hear it, and it's just going to ruin their pump. It's not going to really hurt anybody.
So it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but go ahead, James.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is a train wreck waiting to happen. I mean, if you give them unlimited turn down capabilities when the pool's not occupied, I mean, there's no more, 24-hour turnovers required, and the treatment can be reduced by exponential levels. I mean, there's no way in hell I would support this harmonization or no harmonization. I mean, this is just a loophole to, operate normal 8 hours a day and then do whatever the hell you want afterwards. And that's totally against the required turnover times in the MAC, I mean,
What is 5.7.10 or 4.7.10.5? Does that pertain to a specific situation, or is this
yeah.
all the
So
time?
yeah, so I wrote this piece of code initially, and it was designed so that if people had good filters and good water quality, and they had an online turbidimeter to prove it, that they could take advantage of this by turning down by 25%. If you take out the 25%, you could go from a 6-hour turnover to a 18-hour turnover or a 24-hour turnover or whatever you want. And the recirculation system's not going to work right. The chlorine's not going to get distributed. I mean, there's just all kinds of shit that can go wrong. I mean, this section was only intended to reward people, with good water quality that were monitoring it with a turbidimeter. It was never intended to be, some, free for all with turn it down to whatever you want if nobody's in the pool.
Well, that would still be the case that they would need to have a turbidimeter, turbidimeter,
Yeah.
however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
They would still need that, and they would still need enough flow for the controller to work. But I do hear your point about, turnover times.
Right. And I'm concerned about how an operator or an inspector would be able to know if there was enough flow to draw chlorine through a Venturi feed system.
Also great points.
Mhm.
Yeah, and typically the way an interlock is set up for the automated controller is based on the trigger point of when the pumps are turned off or it's moved into backwash mode. If it's a sand filter, I guess they could do that with 25%. Never mind. I'm sorry. That point's not valid. Sorry, I was talking my way through that.
Okay.
Okay. All good points. Let's go ahead and look at the next one, which kind of go together. Actually, the next two kind of go together. And James, I know you're the facilitator on the next two. Do you want to do your facilitator stuff on the next two, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can talk about it.
Okay.
So this is another one on the turn down system, and similarly it it provides no limits. It takes away the 25% limit that's supposed to keep the recirculation system and stuff, reasonably intact, and it just says the turnover shall be 8 hours or less. So I mean, if you had a 1-hour turnover or a 2-hour turnover, then you can still make it 8. In which case you're probably going to screw up the recirculation system, maybe the chlorination system. I mean, you just can't take the training wheels off of this, so to speak. I mean, 25% may not be the right number, but unlimited or, any pool can go to 8 hours. I mean, those things are just, ridiculous. I mean, this could be a 800% increase for a 1-hour turnover pool. If you had a plunge pool or something, so. And then something about the flow rate shall be greater than the minimum flow reported by the filter manufacturer. I'm not aware of any filter with a minimum flow. I mean, they all have a max flow, but I'm sure some of them might have a min, but I'm sure they all don't. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to not vote or not support either of these.
Okay. Let's
Real quick, Miklos, can I just
Yep.
make a recommendation? And I'm trying not to overly influence with this, just for the record. One option, because James, you mentioned a turbometer. this particular section does not list a turbinator as required for the turn down. So one option is this language can be modified to where to include a turbometer with appropriate readings. That's just kind of my suggestion, right, on how to improve this. The issue with 25%, if we go back to the third edition, which is, I believe, where this came in at, Miklos, I know you and Joe were on that third edition, so I hope my memory. The conversation centered around the inclusion of VFDs and how do we handle that. The 25% was a compromise because no one really knew what the right number was. So it was just a wild guess, so to speak, by the TRC and the submitter on what that number should be.
Yeah, the submitter was me, and it wasn't a wild guess. I mean, we ran this at the university pool at Charlotte for a year or so at 25%. We didn't have any problems. So that's where that number came from. And to say that it's the right number, we didn't test any other numbers. We just tested it at 25% and said, hey, this works. It's not something that would necessarily work for every pool or be a good ideal. I'm fine with it being there at the 25% level. I'm not fine with, 8-hour max or, unlimited or, anything like that. I mean, it's never been tested at those levels. It's only been tested at 25%. I mean, there's good language in there, like, specifically pointing out the inline turbidimeter and stuff, but, the bad language that comes with it is just not acceptable. Yeah.
All good comments.
I probably shouldn't say we tested this as a campus pool because that would violate North Carolina regulations and be against the law, but, whatever. We might have tested it at the campus pool.
James, I wasn't going to make a comment.
Thank you.
It's the pool in your lab, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The unregulated pool.
Let's look at one more. So this one is in the same vein where this would. Oh no, this is more for specialty pools. Never mind. We'll stay on these two. Any other comments about these two CRs?
The one point that James made that I'm not sure I agree with is not being able to go to a 6 or an 8 hour turnover on a 1 or 2 hour turnover pool when the pool's not occupied. I think the 1 and 2 hour pools are based on high bather loads. And if the pool's not occupied, I'm not sure that you really need to stay at even 2.5 or 3 hours. As long as you continue to filter or and feed chemical. And I think I would be okay with a 6 or an 8 hour turnover when the pool's not occupied.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair statement to say that it may not need to be 1 or 2 hours all the time. But in terms of how far can you reduce it before the recirculation system creates dead spots and just doesn't get the water out there and stuff. Well, it depends on the design of the pool. I mean, if the pool's, 50 feet wide or 50 yards wide, you're going to have different results. And, again, I think that there's a lot of emphasis that we need a turn down system, that we should have it. But I don't think it should be unlimited.
Does the MAC, as it's currently written, prevent the turn down for extended periods of time when a facility may not be open to the public? And is there a recovery period where once it's achieved, a normal full turnover, it returns to normal duty. The language in here that makes me ask that question is about the pool being occupied or not occupied, and it brings to mind the question: are we just talking about overnight, or are we talking about longer periods when a pool might be, not open during, a holiday break or whatever the case may be?
It only refers to unoccupied times. It doesn't specify about duration nor recovery time.
Then I think it would be interesting, and I mean, obviously we've got to vote on what's here, but possibly a very good use of these VFDs is to be able to turn down the pool for longer periods of unoccupation rather than just overnight. So that may be a different use case that could be explored.
Yeah, I think these things here are referring to when the pool is considered open for business. And an outdoor pool in a northern latitude that closes for 6 or 7 months out of the year, they would be closed and maybe shut down everything during that time because there won't be any bathers.
Yeah, I wasn't even referring to a seasonal closure like that. I was referring to longer periods of time when a pool may or may not close, but that's a great point as well.
Yeah, my concern would be here, if you have a pool with a crappy sand filter and cyanuric acid in it, it's going to take it about 7 days to get 3-log crypto removal at the 6-hour turnover level. So if you start allowing that to be 12 hours or 24 hours, you can get into 2 weeks, 4 weeks to get 3-log crypto removal. I think that there's a point where you can't allow unlimited turn down. And,
yeah, but if the pool's been closed to bathers, where's the crypto coming from? If it's operating correctly and then shut down for a week, does it really need 7 days to recover from crypto?
Well, I mean, that's what the model shows is that, based on the 21% removal that it gets every 6 hours for 63% of the water, it takes about 7 days to get there with no swimmers or no anything else going on.
Yeah, I understand that, but if the pool is closed to swimmers, the question would be, where would the crypto, or where would the theoretical crypto even come from?
Well, at any given time, there's a percentage of the population that's infected with crypto and some of them are swimming. So I'm not saying every pool's infected all the time, but there's always people infected and there's always people swimming.
Yeah, but if the pool is closed and it's turned down, nobody's using the pool.
Right.
That's part of how this is written, is that nobody is using the pool. And then the pool is going to be opened back up and returned to regular operation. There shouldn't be any crypto in the pool because there were no swimmers and it was filtering and being chemically treated, and then turned down and then restarted.
It would have got in there before the turn down happened. And then I think what James is trying to say is when, at the moment you close it, when all the people finally get out, there might be crypto in there, and it's going to take 7 days from that point for everything to get clear out with no bathers in it.
Ah, okay. All right.
That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, Kevin.
I'm a little dense sometimes, no worries.
I think these are all good points. I think my feeling, I totally hear you, James, and your concerns, and I agree with a lot of them. I think we can probably mitigate some of those concerns with like future wording, but I think to kind of move the industry down the path of green technologies and energy savings, I think I would approve this CR. Actually, not the first one, not the harmonization one, but I think this one's a little bit better written, has more parameters in it. That may or may not mean anything like the minimum flow rate by the filter manufacturer, but still has more parameters in it, and I think gets us a little bit more towards the goal of energy savings and efficiencies.
I just did a little math in my head, and if you're going to increase the turnover time from 6 hours to 8 hours, that's a 2-hour difference. So 2 hours of that original 6 hours is a 33%. So is this implying it can't be reduced by more than 33%?
Well, in a 1 hour turnover though, if you're adding 7 hours to a 1 hour turnover, that would be 700%. So that's where it becomes a slippery slope, I think, is not when you're looking at a 6 hour pool, but when you're looking at a non 6 hour pool that can go to 8.
Yeah, that's why I asked that maybe the right language needs to be 33% and get rid of the hours. Can't be turned down more than 33%. These guys will be happy because they'll get to do it for 8 hours on a 6 hour pool.
Right. I would support a 33%, but I mean, when you're doing the 8 hour thing, I mean, 8 hours could take a 2 hour pool to an 8, which is 400%, and that just doesn't seem.
No, like a 1 hour
Same.
pool would only be allowed to be reduced by 33%.
Right. I would support
an hour
that,
and
but
20
that's just
minutes.
not what's written. I'd be
Yes,
happy
exactly.
to send it back.
That isn't what's written. Right. Are we going to vote on these, Mick?
Yes,
separately?
we are. Any
Separately?
other comments?
I'm sorry, Nicholas, could you scroll down on this one? I don't have it open right now, and I wanted to see if the language about the control system is included in the second version.
I believe I did see that it was.
I don't see that in this one.
I thought it was, but maybe not. It just says that the turn-down system shall be required to maintain required disinfectant concentrations and pH at all times. So
That would imply it.
yeah, so it's implied if it's not able to
Okay.
siphon, yeah, correctly. Okay, so this is the second one. So let's go back to the first one. Here. So first vote is going to be on this one. This is the harmonization. Sounds like we had enough back and forth that we may want to go one by one on this. So we'll start with James.
Yeah, I don't support it.
Okay. I do not support this one either. Terry?
No, I do not support.
Ken?
Do not support.
Kevin?
No.
Grace?
I don't support it.
Joe?
Do not support.
And Heather?
Do not support.
All right, that was unanimous. Now for the second one, which is a lot of the same language, but was submitted by Michael Weinbaum. We'll go ahead and again go one by one. James?
I don't support. I would recommend sending it back for the 33% or some kind of revision if you all want to do that.
Okay. I am going to vote in support. Terry?
I do not support.
Okay. Ken?
I support this one.
Okay. Give me 1 sec. I got to make notes. Kevin?
I do not.
Grace?
I don't support it.
Joe?
I do not support.
Heather.
I do not support it.
All right. That one is not supported.
Miklos, very quick, from a process standpoint, what's the vote totals on this one?
On this one,
Yeah,
there were, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? No, 8. So there were 6 in support, 2 for, I'm sorry, 6 did not support, 2 in support.
okay. From a process standpoint, this would be listed as an abstain because
Okay.
we didn't meet the 60% for a no or a yes vote.
Thank you for clarifying.
60% what? I didn't understand that.
Didn't meet the 60% threshold to issue a yes or no vote.
6 out of 8.
That's 75%.
Out of the total percent, total number of TRC members.
How many total are there?
13.
All right. Next one is 47110. And that again was submitted by Michael Weinbaum. James, I think this one's yours as well.
Yeah, so Michael submitted kind of a revised turnover table here, and he's basically said that lazy rivers should go from 2 to 3, wave pools should go from 2 to 3 hour, and plunge pools should go from 1 to 2 hours. So basically, just relaxing the current MAC turnover table for lazy rivers, wave pools, and plunge pools, each by 1 hour. And the justification or rationale is that that's what we do in Florida. So basically just trying to make the MAC match what Florida currently is doing. So I don't think there's a great scientific rationale. I don't have any personal experience. I mean, I led the filtration recirculation committee that initially wrote this, and, they seem pretty happy with the turnover tables and things. I'm not sure that, people with more experience at this than me are welcome to chime in here.
I would be interested whether or not there are more states besides Florida that are using those relaxed flow rates.
I could tell you that probably, yeah, but it's not broken down this much as in the MAC. It's like deep water pool, shallow pool, and that's it.
So I think these numbers have been in the MAC
And
for quite a while and, haven't
Yeah.
changed. So I don't know if we need more justification to change them. They seem reasonable to me, but I don't design wave pools or anything.
wave
Joe, were
pools
you?
and lazy rivers get a lot of bather load,
Mm-hmm.
and they're already moving a lot of water around. So I think it's pretty easy to get that 2 hours. I'm not so sure about the plunge pools, but we have to vote on them collectively, right?
Yeah, it's all in one table. So I apologize. I'm not going to attempt to try to share the table screen. It's going to take me 10 minutes to get back to where we're at. But to reiterate what James had said, so lazy rivers, the table would take the turnover rate from 2 hours or less to 3 hours or less. Plunge pools would go from 1 hour or less to 2 hours or less, and then wave pools would go from 2 hours less to 3 hours or less. From my perspective, I think that these turnover rates were put in place for a reason with, I've slept since then, but I'm assuming a fair amount of scientific rationale. So I think without some really good reasons otherwise, I don't know that I would support this one.
Miklos, I have the chart ready and pulled up if you want me to share my screen so people can see it.
By all means, feel free. So this is the chart in the current chart in the MAC.
So it would just add an hour to the wave pools, the lazy river, and the plunge
Yep.
pool. Everything else was proposed to be the same.
Yes. Any other questions on this one? We need to keep things moving.
Does anybody support this change? You know, it doesn't. I'm not against it. I just don't know.
Yeah. As a whole, I do not support this change. I would support an increase in the turnover time of lazy rivers. Just thinking about the risk of ingestion of lazy rivers versus wave pools or plunge pools.
Yeah, I have the most concerns about the lazy river and the wave pool, just because of bather load.
So maybe Miklos take a vote and see if anybody supports here.
Okay. Anyone in support of this CR? Please indicate with a yes. All right, this one's unanimous, not supported. Thank you, Dewey. Let me find my controls here real quick and on to the next one. All right, this one is another one submitted by Dewey. And this is part of the MAC ISPSC harmonization. It's a new CR. So floor inlets shall be required for aquatic venues that are greater than 50 feet wide. And
I think
James, is this one yours too? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. So I think this is already included. Dewey, could you check 4713131? I think it's already in the MAC, and putting it in there again would just be redundant. Unless there's something I'm missing. It looked like it was already in 4713131.
Yeah, give me a minute. I called myself checking to make sure, but that does not mean I was correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I thought this was in there as well.
yeah, I think
Yes, it is actually. So I missed that one.
Yeah, so this will be an easy not
Yep.
support, right?
Yep.
Well, or Dewey, can we just withdraw this one? Do we
Yeah,
need-
I was going to suggest.
Yeah, just
simply
withdraw.
remove it.
I'll just withdraw that one.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you, James.
You bet.
This next one is James again. Inlets at stairs and ramps. This is 4713333. That's 4 3s. Submitted by John Kelly. James, go ahead.
Yeah, so the ideal here is that if you have stairways or ramps, sometimes they have a exclusion from the perimeter returns and overflows and things like that. And the concern though is that there's a high bit of traffic at ramps and stairs and entryways and things like that, and the chlorine could be depleted. And so the ideal here is that you put an isolated inlet to try to get some chlorine there. And this one seems to make good sense to me, and I would support it. I mean, it's just asking for kind of a special inlet directed at these places that don't necessarily require an inlet because they're high traffic and high risk.
They're not prohibited from doing that now, though, right?
Correct.
No,
So-
as a matter of fact, I think I know of at least one firm that it's usually their basis of design.
And this would be for either a wall inlet or a floor inlet.
Yeah, just a means of getting filtered and treated water to that area. And I can add a second that uses this as the basis of design.
Typically they're wall inlets, I believe. I don't know that I've ever seen a floor inlet in a stair case.
Yeah, I wouldn't want people stepping on them.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, typically the wall inlets with directional balls, so you can kind of move them around when you need to. Any other comments? I would agree. This is a good addition overall, as well. Just I think having this as a standard of design just across the board is a good idea. Any other comments? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Haven't heard any one not in support, so let's hear any members not in support of the CR. All right, this one is supportive. Go to the next one. And James, I think you're off the hook.
Oh boy.
This is a piping inspection. This submitted by Dewey, again, part of the ISPSC harmonization. This is 471734. New section. So prior to backfilling, piping, including process piping that is installed in trenches, shall be inspected prior to backfilling. Makes sense to me. Does anybody else have any comments?
I can see this as being burdensome to some understaffed health departments, and probably increasing the cost of permits and construction time waiting for an inspector to get out there.
This is Grace. For Fairfax County, we do require that they get inspected before backfilling. So we do, and it is quick enough for us to go out there and look at it for about 30 minutes, an hour. So we do require this.
State of North Carolina also requires this, and we have a checklist that the counties use for piping inspections, but it's also required by our state rules to do this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about some jurisdictions in lesser populated states where there's one inspector for new construction, and it may be a 6-hour drive to get out to the job site.
I'm looking to see if when it says inspection, if that is defined.
You know, this is a guidance document, and the MAC has only been adopted in its entirety just a couple times. A lot of jurisdictions choose to, based on their resources, pick and choose certain sections of the MAC that either fill gaps or most applicable. And if this is something that would cause burden, maybe this would be something that would not be considered for adoption. Because I've only seen a handful, like 2 maybe 3 jurisdictions ever adopt the MAC in its full entirety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just because it's in here doesn't mean it has to be adopted or will be adopted. Even though I'd love that, but that's not how people use the MAC.
We would all love that.
And I think Nicholas makes a good point too. It doesn't say that I can see inspected by whom exactly, or how that inspection would have to occur, whether it would have to be in person or whether pictures or video submitted could work, or that could be defined by the states adopting it.
Yeah, it could be that the designer engineer needs to inspect it.
And many states and jurisdictions have their pool, particularly their construction aspects of pool design, not in the health code. It's in their building code. So yeah, that inspected by whom would need to be variable.
Yep. I think as it's written, it's vague enough. And Joe, I liked your points that it's a guidance document. Definitely see, Kent, where some places could be burdened by it, but I'd argue they're also going to be burdened if they have to dig this stuff up and redo it.
This isn't feasible in a particular jurisdiction. Maybe they shouldn't adopt this one particular section.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Anyone not in favor of this CR?
I'm not in favor.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. All right, this one does pass. It is supported. And I have made the note that Kent, you did not support. Next one is
Hold on. Dewey is, if we got 7 out of 13, that's not 60%. Is this one also an abstain?
Yes, we have to have 8 total votes to pass or not pass a CR.
oh, apologies. Okay, then this one is abstained as well. Give me 1 second here. Make sure I'm taking good notes. Okay. Because of that, our vote for, I want to make the note 47110-5. Which
Is
was
also an abstain. Yeah.
is also an abstain. Yes. All right. Next one is 47181. And let's see, James back on the hot seat.
Oh boy, this sure beats the hell out of just sitting here not being able to talk the whole time. So this change is actually concerning VFDs, and I guess there's concern that people will turn them down or up or something like that. So this is kind of a recommendation or a requirement that they be set and locked at all times. So basically, if you have a VFD, then you don't really have a VFD. You just have a VFD instrument that's totally set and locked at all times. So the ideal being that I guess if you turned it up higher, you could create a VGB concern for entrapment. Or, if you turn it down lower, you could violate the turnover times that are required. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the idea that the MAC requirements would be there and respected without this. I mean, if you use a VFD, I mean, you use a VFD. I don't see the limit that it should be set and locked at all times. And further, I'm not sure that that's even possible with all VFDs. I'm not sure they all have a set and lock type of feature. So I don't know. I thought this one was questionable. I'll invite discussion. Anybody that wants to chime in here.
Well, I agree with you, James. And one of the things that we do with VFDs is manually ramp them up during backwash. And if you set it and lock it, you don't have that ability.
Mm-hmm. So this one might have unintended consequences. Then go ahead.
Is the intent of this, though, to lock it from unintended adjustments by unauthorized people that may work their way into the pump room? Or is this to lock the VFD so it can't adjust based on the inputs?
I don't think it specifies.
Oh.
Yeah, because some VFDs will kind of ramp up as the filter clogs to maintain that flow. And that's something you definitely want to happen.
That's
right.
That's the
It's kind
point,
of the
right?
point. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, that's why I asked if this is maybe intended for unauthorized use lockout, but I can't tell by the way it's written.
It sounds like it probably is, but to your point, I think Kent, you had mentioned that, there are times where you'd ramp up a VFD and some features will allow for a ramp up or ramp down of the VFD attached to that feature. So I don't know if that takes that into account or not. And I don't know enough about VFD programming to know whether that these locks are kind of possible while still being able to ramp up or ramp down due to flow.
Yeah, it sounds like that this one has some holes in it. It's not ready for prime time, so I wouldn't support this. Does anybody think this is something we need?
Yeah, I don't support this one either.
Okay, we'll go ahead and just vote then. Anyone in favor? All right. This one is not supported. All right. James, I believe you are officially off the hook for today.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going camera dark here. I'm going to get some water.
Just don't go too far.
Okay.
We need you to vote. Next one is 6531, and Grace, I believe this is yours. This is adjusting form stool contamination response times, and James was the proposer on this. So
Nicholas, very quickly, Sarah is here, so we have a quorum +1.
Excellent. Great timing, Sarah.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Sorry I'm late.
You're all right. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Grace.
Okay, so this is talking about adjusting response time for form stool contamination. And then it is saying that when cyanuric acid is up to 15 parts per million, and then it's scratched out, I think the proposal is to remove or a stabilized chlorine product. Water shall be treated by doubling the inactivation time required by MAC and increase the concentration DPD FC free chlorine concentration to at least 9 parts per million. And then and then also add in aquatic venue water that contains up to 90 parts per million cyanuric acid. Water shall be treated for 250 minutes while maintaining free chlorine concentration of at least 20 parts per million. So I think I like the clear direction. So I'm good with this.
Do we know where the 15 part per million parameter came from?
Actually, I don't know.
Uh-huh. And I'm thinking that in pools they're using trichlor, 15 parts per million is probably pretty low.
Oh, that
Ken,
is true. That is
Ken,
true.
I can answer where the 15 came from. If you look at the crypto requirements that are right next to this in the MAC, it says the same thing. Up to 15 parts per million, you can do hyperchlorination, but actually above 15, you have to drain the pool till you get down to 15. With Giardia, however, you can actually, increase the concentrations and times until you get up to a scientifically equivalent value. So that's where the 15 came from. It's just kind of paralleling what the CDC wrote for crypto.
Okay, and James, can you also explain the basis for the for the 4+ hour at the raised chlorine concentration?
Yeah, absolutely. So all this is based on CT values, and the CT values are based on the amount of free chlorine, not the cyanuric bound chlorine. And so when you just factor in the cyanuric bound, and this is exactly what the CDC did on the crypto stuff. So I'm just extending that concept to here. So if you have 90 parts per million, it may lower the concentration of free available chlorine such that you need a longer time and a higher concentration. And so that's, there's nothing magical here.
Thank you.
The change again? The proposed change?
Mm-hmm. So it keeps the current language for doubling the inactivation time. It actually, instead of any cyanuric acid level, anything up to 15 parts per million would double the inactivation time. And then increase the free chlorine concentration to at least 9 parts per million. And then in venues that have over 15 up to 90 parts per million, that they would need to increase the chlorine concentration to 20 parts per million for 250 minutes.
I think it's important to note that this is pertaining only to formed stools.
That is correct.
Diarrheal stool incidence is 6,532.
Yeah, that's coming next.
Any additional comments? Okay, hearing no other comments.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'm sorry. Does the existing language predate the CDC and the Falk study? Is that why we're doing this update?
I'm not sure when the Falk study was, but I believe
2019 CDC was 2015 is what it says here.
no, because I mean, I think these sections were rewritten in 2019. Dewey or somebody, do you want to correct me? Because that's when we went through the whole cyanuric acid change.
Yep, trying to get off mute. And Joe, back me up if I'm wrong, the disinfection protocol for contamination was not modified. The key work that came out of the Falk study was deployment of a ratio for chlorine to stabilizer. That was the key component. And that was the only changes to the MAC that really resulted out of that study, along with incorporation of the DPD-FC language.
Okay, so this is now essentially updating the formed stool contamination section to utilizing that same information. And I hope I'm not oversimplifying, but that's how my mind works.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's just trying to update the Giardia formed stool response to match the crypto unformed stool response. Yeah, same science, same CT values.
Okay.
I will say, if this one were to pass, I think it would get quite a bit of scrutiny at CDC, because these contamination response protocols are based on other CDC guidance. They don't just find themselves present in just the MAC. So this would trigger other things getting updated and being evaluated by other groups within CDC. Yeah, so from my point of view, this needs to match what everyone else. We all got to be on the same page when it comes to the fecal response for formed and diarrheal. The MAC does, and I can't speak for the other groups or centers or web pages that would be impacted.
So, okay. Those are good points. So I think my perspective from everything that's been said is, one, since this study is 8 years old already. So since things haven't been updated for CDC research, I would probably vote against this one. And then in addition to that, the change to increasing free chlorine concentration in 9 parts per million for pools with cyanuric acid. I think could be quite burdensome.
That is a significant change from what's currently there.
Yeah, I would put this more in maybe like the revolutionary category. Not saying that it would be a bad thing. I just think it would be revolutionary and it would be pretty burdensome.
Yeah, I'm not saying I dislike any of this, but there's some hurdles beyond just this vote here. And same with increasing the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the argument though is that if you're following the science based on CT values in one spot, and then right up above it, you're totally ignoring the science. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand that the CDC should have changed this already, and they haven't. But does that mean we don't change it because they didn't change it? And maybe the answer is yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking that that I'm in support of it. And if the CDC doesn't like it, they aren't going to include it anyway.
Joe, is this something that, depending on how the vote goes from the TRC, is this something that will be appropriate to shoot over to EZID as a question and maybe a task group form?
Yes. Just because I know how the ripple effect it would have across multiple CDC areas and multiple CDC websites.
I can't tell, Joe, are you saying never mind.
Yeah, and the answer may be that, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Let's change it all to meet this. I just know that there needs to be consistency across all the different websites that talk about all get different kinds of things.
Yeah. Ken, let me ask you, and any other, because I know you're not an operator, but you're close with a lot of operators. Anyone else that's an operator? I'm trying to get a pulse. I'm not. Ken, sounds like you're okay with increasing to 9 parts per million for a form stool using cyanuric acid. Do you not feel like that would be too much for?
No, I don't think that would be too much for our operators.
Okay.
I see Jen's message in the chat there, but any changes going through the any proposed changes for 5th edition Mac, we will be going through this CR process and make sure that all appropriate partners are communicated with and shared with, including Michelle, but we're not going to bypass this process.
Any other comments? This one's a toughie for me.
Agreed.
All right, well, we do need to move on, so we need to go ahead and take a vote, unless there's any other comments. We're gonna probably have to go line by line here again. So let me see, James, you wrote this, so you've got to bow out. Yep. I'm gonna skip myself right now. Terry.
I'm in support of this.
Okay. Ken.
Support.
Kevin.
Support.
Grace.
I support.
Let's see, Joe.
I support.
Heather.
Support.
Sarah.
I support.
And that is it. And I support this one as well. Cool. And I would say that this is a more revolutionary idea. So great job, everybody, for being open to major changes.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and give EZID a heads up that this has been supported by the TRC. So I'll let Vince and the folks in his branch be aware that it will be proposed, will be presented as supported, and we'll see how it goes with the voting after that. But I'll give them a heads up.
Sure. And Joe, if there's any, I don't know, never mind. Yep, I'll think about it later. Let's just move on. Next one is 65321. Grace, I believe this is yours as well.
Yes. Let me see. I think we should go with the 65321A first. Because I believe they're it makes more sense to
Yeah,
do
this is
this
the one that I have pulled up. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, by Jen. Okay, yep,
Let's do the 1A one first.
yes. The one that was proposed by Jen
Yes.
Wang. Okay,
Yeah.
go
So
ahead.
then this is correcting the errors in the diarrhea response remediation procedure. So the current response to a diarrhea incident does not account for the reduction in crypto concentration due to the required water replacement, leading to longer than necessary treatment time. So if you read the annex below, it talks about how the intent is to reduce, the 3 log reduction of crypto, and then it goes back to that when cyanuric concentration is over 15 parts per million, then then some water will be drained, and then fresh water will be added to dilute the cyanuric acid concentration to 15 parts per million or less. And this also dilutes the crypto concentration, and thereby achieving some of the desired crypto reduction. And so then they're saying that you would have shorter time at the end, required time. And it was kind of difficult for me to go through the math, but I think what it's saying is, if you look at the table, that if you had initial cyanuric concentration of 90 parts per million, in order to get to require 15 parts per million cyanuric acid, you would have replaced 83% of the water, and thereby the result in 0.78 log reduction already. And then I ran through, and then if you go up to the proposed language of 65321A, C1C talks about, it has the calculation, the math that you would need to do, and that is CT inactivation value milligram minute per liter is equal to 5,100 times parentheses 3 minus log 15 divided by cyanuric acid initial concentration. So I mean, the hardest part was I had to go find a scientific calculator, but I ran through the numbers using the 90 parts per million initial cyanuric acid, and the CT value then calculated to be 19,269, and then 1D gives you another formula for inactivation time using this new CT inactivation value, and it came out to be CT time of 16 hours instead of 28 hours. So it does reduce the required time, and so I think that's what it's proposing here.
Okay. So this CR, to be clear, the CR both adds language to the MAC in section 65321. It also adds the language and this chart to the annex. Okay.
Grace, I'm going to ask you a question here. I'm not totally clear. As we look at this equation, the 5,100 times 3 is the 15,300 that we're all familiar with. Now, minus the log of 15 over CYA initial, does this assume the same CT value?
I don't know how they came up with this math formula, for one thing. I was hoping that the research would have explained it, but I didn't have a chance to read through the references.
Yeah, the reason that it goes up to 28 hours is because the CT value changes, or more specifically, the CT value doesn't change. The chlorine concentration changes because some of the chlorine is bound. It's not clear to me that this reflects that. And does anybody have insight on that. I'm not sure the equation is correct. I mean, the concept is totally correct of if you dump half the water, then you dumped half the crypto. That
Yeah.
concept is fine, but
Mhm.
whether or not the CT value change, because if you have 90 parts per million of cyanuric, or whatever, that then the CT value or the chlorine concentration would one need to change, and I can't see that equation changing it.
Yeah.
This may be a silly question, but do we really know, or is there any evidence to support the fact, other than common sense, that dilution with fresh water really does reduce the crypto concentration on a one-to-one basis?
Well, I don't know about the one-to-one basis, but draining is listed as a approved method for crypto reduction. I don't know if that's part of what you're asking, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I'm really.
It's more of the amount.
Yeah, it's really, do we know if we're draining 50% of the pool water that we have actually reduced 50%, versus doing a full drain at 100%? Is it linear, I guess is what I'm asking, or do we know that it's linear? Common sense, I agree, would tell us that it is, but do we know?
Does James have an opinion?
Well, it would depend on if you're filling at the same time you're draining. And it doesn't say specifically one way or the other. I mean, if you're filling at the same time you're draining, it wouldn't be 1-to-1. But if you look at these numbers in the table here, if you have to drain 79% or 83%,
might as well drain the whole thing.
Yeah, just drain the whole damn thing, and then you don't need to hyperchlorinate. So
drain it, clean it, and refill it.
But I think some of these points should probably go to the CDC for consideration. I think there are some valid points in here, if not the whole thing. I don't know that I would support the whole thing, but I think that we should definitely notify the CDC to review this.
I'm wondering if the math required by the additional language is way more complicated than anything that's currently in the CPO or AFO manual. And if the average operator is capable of doing these calculations.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
The average operator, from what I've seen, is not even doing the remediation correctly. So I can't imagine they're going to do the calculations correctly either.
Yeah, this would probably need a table, not a calculation.
Yeah. I like the idea. I think this could be a good annex addition, but as far as the code language itself, I don't know that I would support it for Kent, your reasons. I was thinking that the whole time, is that there's no way, it's making my head spin looking at it, there's no way that an operator, when they've got to figure out how long they've got to close down the pool and superchlorinate, that they're going to sit down and try to figure this out and or do it correctly. So I think it needs some work. It's a good idea, but it needs some work, and I don't think it's feasible as written.
Miklos, Sarah, can you send both of these, the 5311 and the 5321? Can you send them to me via email as separate attachments?
Yes.
And I can share them with my colleagues, and maybe we can get some discussions started over here, whether they're included in the MAC or
not. Sarah, since you're not sharing a screen, would you mind doing that?
We still got to vote on this one.
You want the PDF sent to you, Joe?
Yes, for these two separately.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, while you're at it, would you flag that for discussion with Easy ID about annex language for the inclusion? We're forming the annex committee, but this probably needs to be separate from that for discussion by Easy ID.
Sure.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote. We got to pick it up a little bit. We've been moving a little slow today. Let's see. I don't know that I heard anyone necessarily in full.
Did we just lose Miklos?
Here, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Looks like Miklos just froze.
So he was going to ask, does anybody support this? So does anybody support this? We'll let him know when he gets back here.
I love it, James. Thanks for taking over. That's perfect. Do we have anybody that supports it? Going once, going twice, back to what we did Monday, right?
Yeah, I do agree with Dewey that it sure warrants further discussion for a possibility of addition to the annex language. That might be a great home for that.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think at least half of this is completely valid. I'm just not sure the equation is something that anybody has validated or understands.
I couldn't help but think too, somebody trying to present this to some legislative body to be included in their health code update. How well this would fly with a bunch of stiffs and suits and ties.
That really don't understand it.
Yeah.
Or care.
Okay. Sorry about that. My headphones died. All right, let's go through and do a vote.
We talked while you were off. Nobody was in support of this unless you support it.
Nope.
Okay.
Cool. So not supported on that one.
Great.
And
Sarah,
Joe, I'm working on the email.
Sarah, are you in a position that you can take over real quick?
Sure. Yeah,
Uh,
I can do that.
Okay.
Then Sarah, can we go back to 65321?
Yes, 65321. Okay, I need to share my screen. Oh, I can't while you're sharing, Mick. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, let me pull it up first. I don't have multiple screens, so 653200321.
Yeah, without
Yes.
the A.
Without the A.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
Let's
this is
share this.
yeah. So this is the same thing as the 65321A, but now it is going back and saying in 1A by adding, after you drain it, then refilling the with fresh water if necessary. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So the implication is that you drain and refill, but the language just says that you drain it.
Yeah.
If you don't say you got to refill it, somebody will be out there with a half full pool, chlorinating the hell out of it, hoping for the best.
Well, is this? Yeah. Yeah, I think this is saying that you need to drain and then refill. So you need to shut off your autofill while you drain.
That's a good point too, Kent.
Yeah, yeah.
That you can't be
Versus
filling. You've got to drain and then refill, so you don't want the autofill going at the same time. Yeah, I think that's a good valid point.
Kent, do you think we need to edit this one or send it back, or because
I think I think that the language is written is correct. I just think that needs to be clarified in the annex.
Oh, in the annex. Okay. Dewey, can you flag that for annex discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other discussion on this one? I think this one's pretty straightforward. As far as by the draining and then refilling with fresh water, and then there is a section there that can be added to the annex. Any other discussion on this one? Anybody that does not support this one? Let's vote. So everybody's in support? Going once?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. All right. I think that one is supported. Cool. All right. The next one is Grace, it's you again also.
Yeah, I have a lot today. So it's 6.5.3.2-0001. So it's about diarrheal contamination, and then it just clarifies, it's just an edit. In an aquatic venue with diarrheal stool, contaminated water, the operator, so it's clarifying that, who shall do the following, and then raise the free chlorine concentration to at least 20 parts per million, and then added the inactivation value of 15,300 milligram minute per liter. So it's just an editorial one.
Necessary? I mean, maybe it is, but diarrheal stool contaminated water, to me, that sounds like the same thing as aquatic venue with diarrheal stool water.
Well, and it also defines the CT inactivation value.
I like having the CT inactivation value there. I also like that it says, it gives it a voice of who's going to be doing this. So the operator shall, I do like the active voice there.
If I read it right before, did it say diarrheal stool contaminated water shall?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what it really said, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So we need an actor. The operator shall.
All right.
I like that. Any other conversation or thoughts on this one? Okay. Anybody that does not support it? Looks like we're all in support, so we're going to call this one supported. And thanks for whoever's sharing their screen.
I did.
Perfect, thank you.
And yes, if you look at the MAC, it does say 6532 diarrheal stool contaminated water shall.
Check the free chlorine residual.
Chlorine, yeah.
It should also circulate the water through a secondary disinfection. Yeah.
That's some smart diarrhea. As a dad joke.
I got it. I liked it.
Thank you for laughing.
I'm pretty sure everyone on this call spends most of our time trying to keep poop out of people's mouths, so the right audience.
All right. 721322 and 7213.3. Grace, this is yours as well.
Yep, this is a long one. There's an attachment, I think, embedded file. And then it's talking about modifying contamination response for flotation tank, because currently it doesn't really say how to do it in as much as detail as what the submitter is proposing. And going through it, it's detailed and it's pretty good. I can't read all the writing that she wrote in it, and then on top of that, and then it's all coming under 7.2.13.2.2, and then the submitter is also requesting to just delete 7.2.13.3, all the language under that, because it is kind of generic in terms of, it just says form stool contamination, shall be what did it say? Well, it kind of has this repetitive thing, how it just say, disinfect prior to refilling for diarrhea, and then 13.3.3 for vomit, disinfect prior to refilling, then 13.3.4 blood contamination. So this one, she has added in, I don't know if actually the submitter put 7.2.13.2.2. It's for any type of contamination from vomiting, form stool, or diarrhea. And well, she didn't, I don't think she put blood in here specifically, but it is pretty cool detail directions.
Is this submitted on behalf of any committee or group or?
If we can scroll up, maybe we can see.
Yep, sorry.
And
No.
and have any TSCs reviewed it?
No.
So the
These
blood
these have-
contamination's marked out. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, James. I just wanted to know, all of these have been sent to the TRCs. They just may not have been able to submit a report yet.
Oh, there's a chat from Jen.
She just said that she submitted it on behalf of herself. So yeah, it's not part of a committee.
Right. With some input from one of the leaders of the flotation tank committee.
Okay.
You scroll to the top of it.
Yep.
Well, the top of the change language.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Here. And I am gonna put the timer on.
The only thing I noticed here, I like the increased detail, but this doesn't break it down for diarrheal or formed. It takes away blood
Entirely.
In the rest of the MAC, we treat form stool contamination different from diarrheal stool. And in here, we're not doing that. It looks like we're treating everything always the same. And maybe that's the right thing to do in a volume of water that is significantly smaller than a swimming pool or even a hot tub.
Yeah, the CT times won't be anywhere near what the crypto required for a diarrheal stool incident would be.
Well,
And
I don't think it makes sense to do the CT times for flotation tanks, right? Like,
well, if you're going to be draining it completely, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and is are the filters compatible with these levels of free chlorine? Does anybody know that? These are bag filters that are. I guess they're throwing away the filters though. Yeah, this is a lot to digest.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anything in there after it's been drained that the inside of the tub needs to be disinfected?
I think that's what the whole procedure is how to disinfect it before you add more salt, and then after you disinfect
I see
it.
where you get rid of it, remove it.
And then
clean the empty
you
the
are
float
spraying the
tank.
walls with a bleach solution, wiping down with
Okay,
disposable
there we
or
go.
cleaning rags.
Yeah.
So you are cleaning it. There's
Yeah, that's
the
what I wanted to see.
process.
Okay. Maybe we need to
Yeah.
just include the word blood at the top.
Yeah, I think the blood being missing is a concern because they're deleting the blood contamination and then not adding anything about it there.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah.
be in support of this if we could add that word. Or vomit, blood, form stool, or diarrhea stool.
Well, and Jen just put a message in the chat wanting to make a change to for a different procedure for a form stool versus a diarrheal stool. I'm thinking we don't have time for that at this point.
Yeah, no.
I don't have a problem whether it's formed or diarrheal draining the whole thing. If I was the person getting in after this.
I agree.
Jen, this is a kind of skipping procedure, but so Dewey, you can slap my hand later. But Jen, can you just mark in the chat, would you be open to the addition of blood added to the line contaminated material from vomit, form stool, or diarrhea stool, and just add blood into that?
While we're waiting on Jen to respond in chat, one other just kind of a process issue that full disclosure, I should have caught this already. The way the format is, it's adding code section line by line. The better approach would be to follow a similar format as in Legionella contamination, just because I'm looking at that in the Mac right now, where instead of individual lines of code, it uses a parentheses numbered format. So instead of 7213221, that would be 1 parentheses. And that'll continue on to the whole protocol.
Yeah, that'd be nicer.
I see.
So just number these steps as 1, 2, 3 instead of code sections.
Correct.
Yep. They'd probably read a lot easier that way.
Yeah. Jen, just while we're here, if you would just indicate in chat if you'd be okay with that.
She did. She indicated that she would be okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and vote with the assumption that we're gonna go ahead and vote, and blood will be added to the list of contaminated material. I don't know. Contamination types. Sounds like everyone's in favor. Is there anyone that is not in favor of this one?
Are we also voting on the editorial change that Dewey just suggested?
I don't think we need to vote on it because that is just something that will need to be done.
That's just the formatting issue.
Yeah, just
Correct.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea that Dewey suggested because it's consistent with the specialized decontamination we have for Legionella and hot tubs.
Okay. Anyone not in support of this CR? Not in support. All right. This one is hearing no objections. This one's supported. And then I'm adding to the notes that there are format changes to be made. Add blood to. Great. Next one is 5731211.
Oh, I thought it was 653600.
I'm sorry, 653. Yeah, 6536. I'm sorry.
That's all good. So then the next one is Legionella contamination, and it is to align MAC with the current CDC Legionella response recommendations. So this has a link, I believe, and so it looks about the same in the in the current reg until it gets to number 11 or number 10.
Give me
flush
one sec.
in-
I'll pull it up.
Yep.
You welcome to keep talking now.
No, it's okay. We can look at it together. If we can get to that link.
There we go.
Okay, so it stays about the same. Let me see. Maybe what I saw was slightly different. Okay, so number 4, drain all water from the spa, dispose of water to waste or as directed by the local authority. And I think that makes sense. Instead of 5. I'm just gonna let you guys read it.
Yeah, this is one of those examples that has cross-center implications. And I think this was submitted in coordination with Michelle Hlowska, who's, historically been really part of all of this process with the MAC. And Legionella specifically, we deal with that in my center, National Center for Environmental Health, but also at the National Center for Infectious Respiratory Diseases, and also infectious diseases with enteric and zoonotic infectious disease. So that's 3 different centers. They were the ones that worked collectively to come up with this new protocol that can be found in multiple places across CDC's website. I think the spirit of this submission is to update the MAC to match the new stuff that's on CDC's website.
Great, thank you, Joe.
So I do like it. I think up to number 10 or 11, it's sort of editorial, I feel like. But then number 11, there is additional direction to refill the spa with clean water and return to spa to the routine disinfection level. Maintain routine disinfection levels for at least 48 hours prior to collecting samples for Legionella testing. And that's kind of good. And then of course, because of the addition of number 11, the numbers below gets increased by 1. And then on the number 12, it added another equipment compensation tank, and then more editorial. And number 15 had a more of instead of saying retest, laboratory tests shall be conducted every 2 weeks for 3 months, then every month for 3 months. That was what previous rec said. But instead here, it's saying during the weeks and or months after remediation to validate efficacy of the control measures to prevent recurrence of Legionella, with the timing to be determined by the authority. And then a HJ, I think that's kind of good too.
Great, thank you.
I've got one question. Is the pH mentioned anywhere? Is there any?
Nope.
I mean, so they add the chlorine, but they don't have to adjust the pH at all. It could be pH 10 or pH 2.
Well, don't they drain the whole thing and then refill it? And
Well, 9 says hyperchlorinate to 20 parts per million there, and there's no pH. I don't think it's critical here, but it seems like that CDC should definitely say something about the pH. Whether it's not critical or a range. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I think it's safe to assume that the pH is with the MAC allowed range. But this all seems pretty complicated for the average operator to me, and I think all of this would need to be done under AHJ supervision.
And
if there's a Legionella outbreak,
right, because Legionella is a reportable disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really big deal in my mind for 2 reasons. One, people die from this. Right. And 2, there's always litigation because Legionella is so easily killed by properly chlorinated systems, whether it's a
Mhm.
cooling tower or hot tub, and there's usually some kind of thing that went wrong that probably could have, should have not have gone wrong. So this was put together probably very carefully and in conjunction with the state health departments and the state public health laboratories, including CDC's laboratory.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I would like to see language added after qualified operator in 6.5.3.6.1 that says under the supervision of the AHJ. Or is that covered in
Number 2.
In number 2 there?
And doesn't it say the AHJ down in the bottom, like in 16 or 17?
Miklos, real quick, who was the submitter for this?
This was
Michelle, wasn't it?
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, her name's not listed, but I recognize her CDC user ID name.
Yeah, I would fully support this. I mean, it's necessary and it's certainly consistent and would work.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what's already on CDC's website.
Any other comments? We ready to vote? Anyone not in support of the CR? Not in support. Okay. This one is supported. Next one is 5731211. Grace? Yours again? Oh, this is Corey's, who's not here. So we're just going to go through this one to actually, you know what? Let's skip this one. Terry, you had a few on here. Would you be all right if we moved to your CRs?
Of course.
Vic, we're still looking at the Legionella protocol.
I know. I'm
Okay.
looking at my spreadsheet and then I'll get there. All right. So the first one we're going to look at is 48224. Let me get that one pulled up. Oh, no. Sorry. One sec.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and start talking.
Sounds good.
So this CR has to do with the display restrictions, directions of use, and warnings on tall diving stands and platforms. And this was not sent to a TSC. There was one public comment in support. And this was submitted in the last round and passed by vote, but was not accepted by the CMAC board and CDC. This CR improved the language from the last version. So if you can see the proposed language yet. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll read it.
Mick, you want to unshare your screen? And Terry, you can probably get yours in there.
Chart. Sorry, am I not sharing the?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you're not.
Apologize. There you go.
So basically they're recommending that the manufacturer recommend the age and height requirements, the restrictions and the directions of use, and that should be displayed at the stand.
Be beyond the scope of what the MAC could say and what the CDC could say, as far as what manufacturers need to have on their labels, or what manufacturers need to recommend. Maybe that needs to be the Consumer Safety Commission.
Or an ASTM standard.
Right. I just know the CDC can't recommend anything to manufacturers.
Yeah.
They already have governing bodies that dictate what needs to be on their product labels.
Okay.
So that's the language for this change request.
All right, so Joe, it sounds like they made some updates to the language from the last go around. However, it still is asking for something that simply is just not able to be inserted into the MAC.
Right, where it says the manufacturer shall recommend.
Yep. Yep.
We're not allowed to say stuff like that.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments?
So for this one to be passed, it would need some specific guidelines to be developed and inserted into the code, correct?
I think so.
That would be my evaluation too.
But the age and weight would probably vary by product, which falls into the
Correct.
manufacturer's purview. So yeah, this one's got issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Any other comments? Go ahead and take a vote. Anyone in support of this CR? All right.
I think maybe we can go back to the submitter and ask them to either work with manufacturers or work with a body that oversees these products, or makes standards for these types of products.
Or submit it to the CPSC and see if they'll do something.
Yeah, who was the submitter on this one? John Kelly?
John Kelly, yep. All right.
Yeah, because if that information is not on here, then I think it'd be a good idea to have it be required, but the MAC isn't the one that could say those things.
Okay. This is a second one, same section, but a different.
Yes, it's different. This one did not have any public comments on it. And it was not they basically redid the language from the last version. It's similarly to the last one. It had gone through the process last time. But they struck the language for the second railing because in to prevent falls. You'll notice in the proposed language text, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, basically they're trying to find a way to avoid kids from falling off these diving boards. So they struck the language of the second railing, which was problematic in the last go round, and basically revised it with simpler language.
I'm having trouble visualizing what's being struck out there. A second rail approximately half the distance from the platform to the upper rail. The distance. Okay. So it's a double handrail.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
One
basically.
34 to 38 inches
protection.
and another one half that height.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're trying to put in more fall protection in the railings.
Yeah, but I think removing that, having one rail instead of two rails is less protection. One handrail as opposed to two handrail. This, the way it is right now, the stuff that's being scratched out, ask for two handrails.
Yeah,
Right.
it adds fall protection, which is
That
to me vague, but it would be at least a second rail and probably something more, but I don't know if there's any standards for fall protection that.
Right, and are we requiring a cage on the back of the ladder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Uh,
need to define what fall protection is.
Right. And I would be interested in getting some manufacturer input on this one. Since if there are issues with it, their legal department has dealt with it.
Yeah, I'm all for helping keep people from falling off of heights, but I think as written has some issues.
I would
Any other
agree.
comments? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Anyone in support of this CR?
Somebody said John's on the call. Could we ask him if there's what fall protection means or if there's standards for that?
If we had more time, I would say yes, but
Okay.
we've got about 4 minutes left.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Let's see if we can close this close one more out. This is going to be 561011.
So nobody supported this one, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This one was not supported. Sorry, I'm trying to get this back here.
Well, this next one is about diving platforms and maintaining slip resistant surfaces on the platforms. There is a comment, there was some comments from the operations and maintenance TSC. They recommended that this is not technically achievable. So basically they want to require that the handrails be maintained and cleaned and dried between users to maintain the slip resistance of them.
Feasible?
And so the TSC said it's not feasible for the operator to clean and dry handrails between each user, is what they stated in their comment. I would agree.
And I don't think we should count or could count on users to do it themselves. Like if you supplied them with a towel and make it do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the queue line at the 3-meter board when I was growing up.
It was in the spirit of fall protection, but I would agree with the operations and maintenance TSC. It's not feasible.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote on this one. Anyone in support? All right. Hearing no one, say this one's not supported. Let's see if we can do 582 real quick.
Okay. This was on supervision at diving boards and platforms, again, in the interest of making sure that people who are not able to get up and down the board and do it safely, they have to have supervision. So that they have to be under the direct supervision of a diving coach or instructor. And the exception would be that a lifeguard has to also be under supervision if the people are over the age of 14.
Don't we
So-
already have some requirements for supervision on other things, like maybe starting platforms? Maybe 510. No, 512.
I think we just looked at one last call that was about that.
Yeah, well, and it was, do you put something on the platform to make it so people couldn't use it? Was what I remember.
Is lifeguard supervision already required for diving boards?
That's what I was trying to look up. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm looking that up too.
Right, and is there a scientific justification for the age of 14?
We know teenagers are the safest people on earth. I think that's the impression.
Right.
Bam.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm
Teenagers.
thinking, I'm thinking of the 3 meter board being a rite of passage for the 10 to 12-year-old group.
Right now in section 582, diving boards and platforms for operations and maintenance, it's listed as NA. We don't have anything in it. And maybe we should. But I'm seeing in my mind, it's already addressed somewhere.
I should have this section memorized when our lifeguards required. But I don't.
5-8.
John Kelly put in the chat that it's a given that there's 14-year-olds. That's where it's a given that you're not going to allow children under the age of 14 to use a 3-meter board.
That he included that in the documentation.
Yeah.
Joe, so I found in the MAC right now in section 5.6.10.3.1, it says starting platform use by unqualified bathers shall be prohibited, and prohibition shall be communicated by signage, covers, or other barriers or deterrents.
Unqualified.
And then 632 is where it talks about lifeguards. And so aquatic venues requiring lifeguards, any aquatic venue in which bathers enter the water from a height above the deck, including but not limited to diving boards. So they're already required for diving boards.
Okay.
So it's really the age limit that's new here, the 14 and over, or over 14. It's not 14 and over, it's over 14.
So if it helps, there's also in that same section 6321, any facilities requiring lifeguards is any aquatic venue that allows for unsupervised children under the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily speak to this, but it is these 14.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is if they're under 14, they can be used by with the supervision of a diving coach or instructor, and anytime it's being used, it needs to be lifeguarded.
So anytime it's being used as it stands right now, it has to be lifeguarded anyways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This puts you have to be at least 14 years old.
So
Right.
Well, you have to be 15 years old.
Yes.
Over the age of 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what, yeah, what is the, I think I would have an issue with the age of 14. I think we need some kind of documentation or something as to why
Okay.
the cutoff's there.
And John said he included that in the documentation.
Okay.
Well, what if a 13-year-old wants to use the diving board?
Didn't see it in the
There's a
documentation.
lifeguard there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to show ID to use the diving board. Is where we're getting to.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of like this one. I mean, it at least provides an age limit. And the parents may have to enforce that portion, but at least there is an age limit and a guideline. So if your 12-year-old's like, Mom, can I go? You'll be like, hell no, you're not 14, over 14. I would support this one personally. Anybody else go
And
either way?
yeah, and John says, look at the report from Canada and the NEISS data.
Are there any issues with setting age restrictions?
Variables there. Because a
Well-
15-year-old could be a really terrible swimmer.
Well, and honestly, from the lifeguard's perspective, it's not like, they're not going to be carrying ID. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to know a 14-year-old from a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I don't think age has much to do with your swimming abilities.
No. Or your climbing abilities, which is the gist of what the CR is trying to do. It's can they climb? It's like, do you let your child go on a ladder to the first story of your house and jump off? That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So the reason for 14, I'm looking in the annex, the reason that they used 14 for facilities that require lifeguards is that because the 50th percentile at 14 years of age for females is 63 inches. And so it's basically it's setting that the age at 14 because this is a critical time frame where there's a difference between water over one's nose and mouth or the ability for one to keep their nose and mouth above the static water line.
Right, but
high dive like
well,
that,
yeah.
that wouldn't make
Right.
sense. I think for me, like
So to interject, when I was running facilities, we used the rungs on the ladder to define if somebody could, they had to be taller than the third rung on the ladder, which puts it up that high. It was based on that versus an age.
Yeah, which would be 14.
If someone
But-
was 20
and-
years old, but they're only 4'2".
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at, and I don't know that it's necessary to really, I don't know if it has any bearing here or not, but I think what I'm getting at is previously the use of age delineation was pretty ubiquitous for operators in aquatics, but I think what we're finding is that in most cases, unless there's some clear scientific evidence for that age delineation, that we're needing to stay away from that.
Yeah, we already require lifeguard supervision.
We
And
already
if-
require lifeguard supervision, yeah.
And if facilities want to have more strict rules, they could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think putting an age in there limits liability for the facility, where if you put an age in there and someone has an incident and they're under that age, the facility says it's not our fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a terrible incident we probably all remember where that child was decapitated on the slide. That had an age limit. You had to be 14 years old. And that kid got on there when he was 12 years old. So I don't know if having a rule like that is that enforceable or that verifiable.
To me, I mean, I like the intent of this. To me, I just think the language,
Needs support.
well, the second part of the language, the exception, I'm not keen on. Well, and then the first part of it, I like the first part, with exceptions under certain criteria, but I don't think age is the correct criteria to utilize.
Miklos, just as a point of order, we no longer have a quorum.
Oh, well, then that point's moot anyways.
Sarah had to leave.
Are there enough people here that would support this if we did have a quorum?
I would not support this one.
Yeah, are there any yay votes?
I would not support it.
It doesn't sound like it.
No.
All right.
Technically, we have to abstain.
Technically, we have to abstain. I'll make the note in our spreadsheet and yeah, we'll move on from there.
Miklos, if you would also make a note to flag this, we've had it in our heads to have an ad hoc to look at tall platforms for a while now.
Okay. All right. Thank you everybody for your time today. I know we went a little bit over. Appreciate everyone's flexibility. We will see y'all at the next meeting. Be looking out for another email from me. We do need to schedule one more call. So look out for that and please respond so we can get that one scheduled. And please be as open as possible. We're at the finish line, but we just want to make sure we can cross. So thank you all for your time. Have a great rest of the week. And thanks for everyone's hard work. Great job.
Mick, our next one's is at 10 o'clock on Monday. All right.
Sounds about right. Give me one sec.
I'd like to also have some advance notice on when the surf venue CR is going to be discussed. I want to make sure that the submitter is available to answer any technical questions we may have.
Yeah, if you want to hang on, I can tell you right now. Give me one
Okay,
second.
cool.
Yeah. Anyone that would like that advance notice to hang on. Let's see. Did Michelle do that one, Joe?
Yes, she did.
Yeah. All right, surf venues. Those are all going to be in the meeting that we need to schedule.
Nicholas, I have another question. So
Yes.
then your schedule says that have it for December 13, but our next meeting is December 11. So are you going to be covering the items that you have it in the schedule for December 13 on December 11th?
Yes, that may have just been a typo on my part. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, that was a typo on my part. I will change that.
Thank you.
And
Thank
the other
you.
one right now I have on my calendars for Monday.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
that's correct.
Well, maybe we can get one if everyone's available on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah. Like I said, I will send out a voting board and let's see what we can do. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time and efforts. Have a great week and great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
That's 10 a.m. on Monday, Jen. 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'm gonna send out I'll send out a follow-up email to everybody.
Yeah, Jen's not on the TRC. She had asked what
Okay.
time. She's been on quite a few of these as an observer.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, everybody. Good job.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Thanks for the work, Miklos.
Yeah, no problem. I hope I'm doing an okay job.
Ah, you're doing great, man.
Appreciate it. I'm trying to. Where did my controls go? I'm trying to stop the meeting and.
It's on my end.
Oh, it's on your end. Okay.
Yeah, it's on my end.
Okay. Cool.
So, all right, dude. I'll see you Monday morning.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.
See you.